Okay, you guys are ready to listen to some stuff, get some good information? Great. All right, so I want to let you guys know first and foremost, I want to thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you guys, and I love you guys very much. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about podcasting and how do you actually make podcasting profitable. Right? And why would you do a podcast versus not do a podcast? Should you go on a podcast, or should you bring guests onto your podcast? These are some of the questions that I'm getting asked all the time. And most importantly, how do you make sure your podcast gets downloads, and how do you make it profitable? Okay, so we're going to be discussing that today. So before I get started, I wanted to give you a little bit of background as to what kind of work I do and how I help other people. Okay, so I'm going to first and foremost, I'm going to show you a couple of things real quick. Two groups of clientele I have, okay, that I really help. One, a lot of times until now, since 2008 to now, I've helped entrepreneurs and business owners. My main theme is that I either help build $1 million plus businesses or build $1 million plus wealth, and that's what I stand for. And most of my clientele is women entrepreneurs, are in the holistic space of some sort, if you will. And second marketplace I have tapped into until now are financial advisors and insurance agents. These have been two main marketplaces. Okay, so I'm going to share with you like the first set of market that I do serve is what do I do and how I do it. Okay, so for me, like, okay, I came here from India with 20 bucks and no English. You guys know that. I went into financial planning in 1994, and I served in that industry for like 27 years. Then what ended up happening to me is that in 2004, I started my own company because until then I was with banks. And when I started, I wasn't bad. I was pathetic. I had to blackmail my dad through my mom to get my first sale in the door. Okay. So welcome to financial planning, right? So that was my that was my initial start. And first 6 years were absolutely horrendous. I couldn't make any sales. I couldn't like literally. I went to all kinds of self-help stuff, including I mastered all the closing techniques, all the presentation techniques. I just couldn't sell for whatever reason. Just wasn't jiving. Okay, and then eventually I got into. I said, okay, I'm going to have to find my groove, and I did, and that's when I went from literally struggling to $300 million in assets under management. And then I started my own company in 2004. I had bought my house. I left my job after I bought my house, and like 2 days later, I got my started my own company in April 2004. April to August, I did research on the market I wanted to serve, and August to December, I did 900,000 in business, and I went up to $5 million in business 3-4 years later. But in 2007, I got scammed with somebody that I knew very closely, scammed me for $250,000. Literally one day I had money, second day I didn't. Like literally it was so sudden. So it hurt me internally, and I was like, okay, I need to really ramp up myself, and I really figured this out. So I went to my grandfather. He was my hero. So he always helped me with everything. And we always talked about yoga, meditation, all these things. And I grew up with my grandfather because my mom had a postpartum depression when I was born. So that being said, he was my true hero. And so I ended up going to him, and he helped me get aligned. And literally by aligning myself and doing certain things, I went from 5 million to 10 million in 6 months. Right. And I never looked back after that. So the reason I tell you the story is because, that scam, what has been my blessing is the reason I figured because of that scam, I figured out, okay, I asked him, has anybody proven how chakras exist in finances? He's like, that has never been done before. So I went to work, and I did over 5,000 plus combinations of chakras, 7 chakras. And I found that there's one particular combination that can become a true signature for everybody. So I created a mathematical formula to help people, especially entrepreneurs, how to measure their potential in dollars and how to measure their emotions in dollars. Because the real question is, they say time is money. The question is how much money. So I answered that question by figuring out a mathematical formula, right? And then I figured out there is a current financial flow that we follow. That's what either keeps us stuck, or it moving us sideways, or it's moving you downwards, right? One of the three outcomes are happening. What we really want is a nice uphill curve, right? So for me, I said, okay, so I've done all these things, but now what? Right. So in 2008, I started doing speaking engagements. I decided that I was going to go speak, and I started doing speaking, and I loved it. I absolutely. I mean, I met this guy by the name Russell. out of a networking event. Somebody referred me to Russell. We hit it off, and he's like, I'm looking for somebody in who is not American, who is Indian, has immigrant story, and specifically my journey of like how I went from zero, $20 and no English to multi-million-dollar business. He's like, I would love to have you on the stage, and I started that journey. But since then to now, I have helped over 5,000 plus business owners. I've taken several business owners over $1 million in revenue, like Sherry Rigby, you heard a little bit earlier, right? And I have several examples like that. But most importantly, I have received, I wrote this book called Sell Like Crazy. So anybody struggling in sales, right? I'll give you guys a copy if you guys need one for sure, okay? But more importantly, I received this congressional honor where one congressman was so impressed with my service that he took the flag and flew it over Capitol and sent it to me as a congressional honor. But that's the kind of things that can happen to you when you do this. So since then, I said, okay, what can I do to really, my mission is really simple, right? I came here with nothing. I have everything. In terms of like, if you look at 5 areas of life, health, relationship, business, finance, and spirituality, I have like pretty much everything, right? So my mission is to either help businesses, entrepreneurs build $1 million plus businesses, or have a $1 million plus wealth, right? So a lot of times you may have big business but you don't have wealth. So that's I think, in my opinion, as a foreigner, when I look at the country and the opportunity that we have, I just think it's just, I'm not so sure how to feel about that just yet, but it doesn't make sense to me to some degree. Does that make sense? Right? So for me, I ended up creating a system. I said, okay, how can I help entrepreneurs and business owners in a proper way? So I created a system, and my system is literally a 4-step system, literally a very simple system, right? Somebody like this, we talk. I have my 3-day event. I have one coming up next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, where I really get into your energetics, help you create your signature financial flow, and I help you build $1 million business path, right? That's one. Then I have an internal system I built. I say, okay, how can I make sure that I'm there for entrepreneurs every day? See, most coaches, consultants, they either give you the ticket to the plane and say, get on this plane and hopefully you'll get to the next level. But my promise is not just to give you the ticket, but get on the plane with you so I can take you to the ultimate destination. Does that make sense? So for me, I created a system. So I have my daily wealth manifestation that I do early in the morning and late at night to help you internally create breakthroughs that are necessary, but more importantly, sustain the breakthroughs. So sometimes I will work with psychologists, or I will work with other organizations, especially with this lady, right, where I helped her create a breakthrough and I kept it there, basically, right? So that it sustains the breakthrough. Then every day from 8:30 to 9:30, I go in and I actually help entrepreneurs and business owners. Now, actually, whatever they're struggling with, I actually go in and help them create not just breakthroughs, but also business building side of it, right? So if you need some help or whatever, that's what I'm doing every day. And then from once a month, I do this 2-day breakthrough event where whatever your strugglings are, whether it's health, relationship, business, financial, spirituality, my goal is to create that breakthrough. So this infrastructure allows me to serve my clients. But the point I'm making here is the consistency, right? I am committed to 100% to my client, like no other coach, no other consultant, no other individual that I know of, right? Including organizations that I serve, right? So my main mission is to really be there with you all the way to your destination. Whether you have a client, Dr. Imani, like we were talking about your clientele, right? Where Dr. Imani might help them create a breakthrough, but then what? How do you keep that sustained? That's the main thing. Like that's you have clients, at least you help them temporarily, that stays, but then next week you feel like you're going back to square one, right? So the systems needs to be sustainable. So one of the first things I learned when I went from 5 million to 10 million and I was about to go down, right, is making sure that whatever you're doing is totally consistent. You can sustain that consistency, right? So the reason I'm mentioning that is, number one thing about podcasting, if I was to look at it as a podcast as a business. So podcasting, anything you do is a business. Speaking is a business. Networking is a business. One-on-one appointments is a business. When you look at podcasting is a business, right? Doing Zoom meetings is a business. doing one like a coffee meets is a business, right? So everything is business, is revenue generation activity. But the question is, how do you effectively do this, right? How do you effectively do this? So so with podcasting, the beautiful part about podcasting is that podcasts, there are about 5 million. So first, understand anything that you're doing, like understand the market and the scope of it. That is my take. First, get it in alignment with it and say, okay, do you love this? Like, is this really for you? Because not everything is for everybody. Right? If I tell you, you just do one-on-one appointments, it may or may not be for you, right? If I say just go do speaking engagements, it may or may not be for you. If I said just do podcasting, it may or may not be for you, or everything is for you, because everything gives you results in a certain percentage. So if you have 10 things going for you and all 10 things are producing 10% results, right? Like, somebody told me the other day, they're like, oh, podcasting doesn't work, blah, 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 right? So first thing you have to ask yourself is that 100% true? Podcasting doesn't work. Is that 100% true? Right? Because it's distortion. When people tell you stuff, they're giving you their opinions, right? Like my 3-day events, there every day. I went to eWoman Network, and eWoman, one of the whatever chapters on Thursday, online. And I said my event, I do 3-day event every month. You know what I first comment I got? Don't do that every month. You lose your value. I'm like, what you don't know is I make 30,000 a month doing that little event, right? So why would I not do that event? Is that a fact or is that an opinion? Am I making sense? They're pulling out of their, like, oh, don't do that. Am I making sense to you? Like, it makes no sense, right? What the heck are you talking about? It makes money to me every month, right? I bring in 30 grand a month just from that. That's not counting podcasting or anything else that I'm doing. Somebody said podcasting wouldn't work. 2 months ago, I started the podcasting. Literally, I started to go on podcasting stages and different things. And since then to now, I have 150,000 impressions. I started my own podcast after that, about a month and a half ago. I have over 1,200 downloads. And then somebody said, well, you can't get clients because of podcasting. I'm like, well, we'll see, right? So we'll see. This week's revenue is $50,000 in last 2 weeks from podcasting. The very thing that they said it couldn't work. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, whatever you're doing, is that 100% true, or is that their opinion? And what are the facts? Correct? Exactly. Yeah, right. So when you really sit down and think about, is this an opinion or is that a fact? Right? And so I said to myself, that is truly just an opinion, obviously, right? Is it 100% true? So everybody do this with me. Put your finger out like this, okay? All right, now I'm going to ask you a question, okay? If you're touching a tree, what are you really touching? A bark, okay? Everybody can go. If you're touching a tree, what are you really touching? A living thing, okay? Thank you for that. If you're touching a tree, what are you really touching? A tree, okay? Thank you for that, right? Yeah, it's a tree. I agree with you, Beth, 100%, right? So look how long it took you guys just to come up with a factual answer. Where it's a simple answer. I'm not even tricking you, right? I'm saying if you're touching a tree, what are you really touching?
I was waiting on the punchline.
No, that is the punchline, right? It's a tree, correct? Yeah, it's a tree. Yeah, you're touching a tree, exactly, right? But look how long it took you. So what happens is when you go to these people, right? So first thing is, okay, find your alignment. Okay, what is your real alignment with podcasting if you're going to do podcasting? Is your alignment with podcasting, you're going to go speak on stage, like, just go on other people's podcasts? One way to build your business, right? Second way to build your business on podcasting is you do your own podcast. Okay, they both have advantages and disadvantages. But the first thing, before you get to that strategy section even, right? Because what are you looking for at the end from everything that you're doing is conviction. That if I do this, will it work for me? correct? Like with absolute, like when you put two steps in front of each other, you get to walk. Like you know that you walk, right? If you open up your mouth and talk, the voice comes out and you get to communicate. You know that piece. But how did that happen? It happened because there are three main steps you took, which you don't even realize subconsciously you took those steps. First, anything that you're doing, you believed in the magic. Magic of, okay, it's possible. I believe in podcasting, it's possible. I believed on stages, it's possible. I believed on doing one-on-one appointments, it's possible. I built a multi-million dollar business just by doing one-on-one appointments. How many of you have heard one-on-one doesn't work? Like in the past, right? We all hear opinions. One-on-one doesn't work. Literally, Dr. Imani, I have 15 appointments booked just on Monday. Just on Monday. That's not counting Tuesday and Wednesday. Thank God I have a light schedule on Wednesday because I'm doing my event on Thursday, Friday. So I just want to be prepared for that, right? But does that make sense? So what I'm saying is that everything is first is believe in the magic. Whatever you're doing is magical, and just believe in that. Then comes the logic. So podcasting is magic. You believe in the magic that it works, right? Take it for face value that it works. Okay. Then comes the logic. Okay. Now what's the logical piece of podcasting? There are two paths. Path one, you get on somebody's podcast. Path two, you do your own podcast. But why would you do that? Why would you just get on podcast? It doesn't make any sense, right? You have to have, for me, I have to have like everything, like, just it has to make sense. So when I did the research, I found out that there are over 5 million podcasts all over the world. Only about 300,000 of them are active, and only very few are actually getting the amount of downloads that are necessary, right? So I said, okay, if I'm going to, because I'm a Leo, and when I compete, I like to go to the top. I don't want to stay hang out at the bottom. It is not my thing, right? So I'm all in, or I'm not in. This is this is how I work, right? So if I'm not touching something, it's not in my energy zone, right? I don't want to touch. It's not my thing. Okay. So the first thing is understand the stats. 5 million podcasts, 300,000 are about active around the world, and very few are getting any kind of downloads, any of that, and very few percentage of that is actually at the top of the pinnacle. Now the question is, how are they over there? Even podcasts. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Iman.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what's a viable podcast number? If you're getting how many downloads, then it's like, oh, that's a viable podcast.
I mean, I think that when you're looking at podcasting numbers, you were saying something.
No, I was just saying it's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I agree with you there, right? So the first thing you want to think about is, okay, whenever you're doing any activity, right? First think of the mass. Like, don't think about how many people they have realistically, but just get on. Like, start the spark, right? Because you are going to find your path by starting the spark. Most people spend too much time in their third chakra, like, in the sixth chakra, quite a bit. Logic, and sometimes you just have to start, because by starting, now you get to figure out what works and what doesn't work. Because some podcasts really work for you well, and some podcasts are just horrible. Like, you just don't want to be like, I had one podcaster, he interviewed me. He had 4 or 5 different podcasts, and first podcast was okay. Second podcast, I'm like, it's the same thing. And then by the time he asked me the third time, I said, I'm sorry, it's not my. I can't feel that, right? I can't see that working, even though he has good amount of downloads, but it wasn't my thing, right? So it's not quite about downloads, it's about the quality. Also, like, who is really listening? Does the podcaster have your audience at bay? Like, I have over 50,000 people on my social media and things of that nature, and then I have also my podcasting audience, right? And then I have created a curated community, that in a private community that you belong to, Dr. Imani, right? So I also have a curated community, that private community. It's not on Facebook, it's on Mighty Networks. It's a private network, right? So most of my clients are women entrepreneurs, like 90% plus. Okay. And then, so for me, right, it's important. That's why I joined eWomen's Network a long time ago. And I'm talking, I've been member since, I say 2010-ish. Yeah, very, like, long time. Okay. So I've been a member of eWomen Network for a long time. So essentially, what I'm saying is, the first thing is figure out your purpose for the podcast you're gonna What are you going to do? But the most important question that most people never ask is, can I do this consistently? Can I see myself do this 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road? I saw me speaking 2008 and I'm still doing it. Right? Like it's a, like, Dr. Iman and I, we ran into so many people and Dr. Iman said, how do you know that person? But it's because I've been doing speaking since 2008. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll talk.
Okay. Yeah. 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 But does it make sense to you, right? So whatever you're picking, don't pick it because somebody said or hyped you up. That's not the point. Because so people, there's always a cycle to sales. So that's what I wrote about in my book. Like, it's always hard head gut. So it's always love, logic, action, love, logic, action, love, logic, action. So when people say, I want to, like, get people to like you and trust you, in my opinion, that's a whole bunch of garbage that they want to sell you. Okay. You really have to help people fall in love with you. So the podcasting is same thing. When you're doing podcasts, you're asking a question: am I delivering content that my audience will go, oh my God, that is so amazing, right? Like, can you deliver content that will be, oh my God, like I am willing to follow this guy or girl, right? And I'm willing to do whatever, like I want to meet that person, right? So that's the first thing. So initially you will stumble, that's guaranteed, right? Initially you will stumble, whatever you're doing. That's part of the game. It's part of the puzzle. If you look at my first 4 or 5 podcasts, I mean, they're good questions, but I was like still figuring out my groove, if you will, right? And as I went on and I listened to other podcasters and I was framing my questions and really like kind of getting it down. And so now it's at a point where I'm asking very valid questions and I'm actually taking like, so my style now is, it used to be where I'm just asking you about you and your business and just basic stuff. But now it's more about, okay, so funny. So let's say if I'm interviewing you, right? So because I want to make sure that you are highlighted as a guest, because guest is important, correct? But so is the client. And the most important thing, what most people never realize, as a podcaster, you have to take yourself out of the equation. You don't matter, it doesn't matter, right? You have to come from a space of like, how can I serve both of these audiences, because eventually it comes back to you, but how can I serve that audience? So if I'm doing your interview, I would be creating an avatar, and that avatar, I'm walking them through the dressing. We'll be walking into the closet, or we'll be doing things that are really practically important for that audience that is listening to my podcast, right? And going, oh my God, like she actually helped me, exactly how to walk through, right? And no promotions, stop the promotions, right? So like, it's not about promoting your business. This is a misconception of podcast, is it's all about, promoting your business. It's not. The minute you do this with anything that you're doing, including speaking, like the minute you put yourself as an important, like some speakers just want to feel good and want to be all that, right? They will usually never make any money. Most of them struggle for that reason, because they're so desperate. Because sales is not about pushing people, it's about attracting people in the right way, right? Podcasting gives you that opportunity to attract your audience, your ideal clients, in the proper way. But you have to put your clients first. You have to put your audiences first before you put yourself. Usually it's the other way around. You put yourself first and then your audience is second, right? You have a question?
Yeah. Okay. So when I started out my business,
Yeah.
and when I really put the pedal to the metal, and I started doing podcasts, I was interviewing all these women, and I was like, I'm not talking about fashion at all. I'm just interviewing, like I would interview and talk to you about your business, and they would get their business out. And then at the end, I would ask them, well, what's your favorite style? And then that would be it. And I was like, I'm doing all this. I'm spending all this time and doing my hair and my makeup, and nobody's, I'm not getting any sales from this. So I felt like, I need to talk more about what I do,
Yeah.
add that in somehow. And so I started this thing after a year of that. It was exhausting. So I started doing My Style Mondays. That was every week. Hair and makeup every week, but I did it. And I was talking to women. So I'm guessing, again, I couldn't see where I was getting value
Yeah.
from it. I've still had very few views. But now that I think back, now that you're talking, I didn't do a lot of promotion.
Right.
I didn't do a lot of promotion of the person
Right.
beforehand. It was like a couple days before, and then I would sit out this little clip. And really, what I needed to do is advertise that person.
Right.
And I have one other question. Do you? That was really a question. I was just saying when I was
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
it,
yeah.
sorry. But I have a question. How often do you really need to do a podcast to make yourself relevant?
Okay, that's a great question, right? Very good question. Now, so you think about it like this, right? Okay, so everything is it's speed. Like nowadays, everything is speed. Okay, so it's very simple math. Think of it this way: if you do one podcast a week, that's 52 guests, approximately. Correct? So you have 1 hour with that person. I take my time. Most people say do your podcast for 30 minutes. I do it for 1 hour because I really want to highlight the guests and I want to highlight your expertise. But more importantly, I want to teach my audience something. Is the only way to do it is to really do that. It's important that during the podcast, like when you're doing this podcasting frequency, what's your frequency that aligns with you? For me, I do it one a day, but that's me. My schedule is set to do once a day. Does that make sense? That's my schedule, though. That is my choice. It's not about what somebody says. So the more frequency you have, the more numbers are going to be. Correct? But for me, it's a mechanism for me to meet my ideal client in a good way without being pushy. So I have a process. So the process is before I do the podcast, I do a pre-call. And the pre-call is more of a get to know you call. And I'm really trying to determine what do they do, and out of that, whatever they do, what's the interesting topic? Because if everybody is doing business consulting, let's say, then it becomes boring. Like one guy, he's an influencer, he got on my podcast and he's like, I do this and I do that and blah 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 blah, and then he says I help kids for entrepreneurship, right? I said I like that because it's a unique topic. So I chose that as a topic on how to help children build out businesses. And we had a nice powwow for 1 hour. He's an influencer, mega influencer, multiple 8-figure earner. You know, he hangs around all the people that you know of that does a lot of Russell Brunson stuff and all that stuff, right? So essentially, like, you know, me and him, we connected at a different level, right? So for me, it's imperative that you align with yourself. Like it may be good for you to do once a week because that's what your schedule allows today. Maybe it's once a month, right? But just know that right? That's today, correct?
Well, yeah, I was doing it once a week, and then I was realizing I couldn't do it every single time. Like at a certain time, I couldn't really announce a time. But after a while, I was like, okay, let me just get it out before midnight. Then it was like, let me get it out. It's not midnight in California yet. So, I mean, it was like that. After a while, I was like, whoo.
Yeah.
And then because I had to edit it, and then I had to get the hair, the makeup, and edit it. So you just come on like, hey,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're good. I mean, you can just do that. I mean,
I mean, if you want, I'll start putting on wigs if you like. But
but I do feel like for women, it is a bit more. You have to.
Okay, so if you make it more than it is, right? So it's like this: touch the tree. Is that really true? You have to do more. Is that really true? Because the question is that 100% fact, right?
Yeah.
It's your thing because that's what you do, right? That's what you do based on you teach people how to dress and things like that. So you feel like you have to do that, right? I'm dressed up a little bit. I mean, I'm in my Indian because
No, you look very nice.
yeah, thank you. But I'm in my Indian authentic self. Does that make sense? So to me, authenticity is important. I know a lot of podcasters who are just in t-shirts, right?
Yeah.
Ton of them, right? So what I'm saying is that it's not that what they are listening to is audio. They're not watching video. This is gonna go on YouTube, so it will be video, like this part of it, right?
Yeah.
But as far as Spotify or Apple Podcast or other podcasting, this is audio.
So you're talking about when you go weekly,
Yeah,
daily like that, it's audio.
it goes on. The distribution channels are audio. Now, as far as my YouTube channel is video, correct? But it's only one channel, right? When I do live stream of this podcast, which I will do, so I always live stream my podcast. This will go in a video. So you Facebook, LinkedIn, so forth, it will go in a video. But you don't have to do that stuff. You can just do audio, and nobody has to know how you dressed up, right? Like, it's all belief system. Does that make sense? Trust the tree. Trust the tree. I'm telling you, trust the tree. Every time you say something, it's trust the tree and say, is that 100% factual? Let me think about it. Is all podcasters really doing every podcast on video? No, right? It starts with audio. Eventually, you might upgrade to video. That's fine. My thing is, when you come on my podcast, it will be video because I want video. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because in a video, one of the things that I do end of my podcast, and I take testimonial. Well, how was your experience? What did you think about that, right? And I put it on my website. So I do market people on my website. I get ton of downloads from my website. Does that make sense? So I have like my podcast, audio podcast, video podcast, and video testimonials from my podcast on my website. So it's how you're thinking about it, right? So it's like you're not touching the tree. Touch the tree, right? The more you touch the tree, the better it becomes, right?
Yeah, because the women I interviewed, the interviews were great. The women were amazing.
Yeah.
It was really good. I
Yeah.
just I would look, there's
Yeah.
like one or two likes
Yeah.
in there, or hardly any views.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
But Ash said something really important. If you don't mind me jumping in.
No, go for it.
You said we got to make sure that we're giving a lot of value to the customer who are the viewers. So talking to guests, and this is for me too,
Yeah.
doing her value, her voice. That's great. I'm talking to me and the other hosts. Are we giving value to the people who are watching? Because if we give value, they'll come back.
Exactly. Right. I have somebody right now from California. She's like, I was struggling with business. I don't know what to do. And she wants to touch dentists. It's her market. And she's like, I don't know what to do. And she was going to some marketer, was paying $3,000 a month. And she's like, I'm just not getting anywhere. I said, okay, let's talk. We put together a strategy, right? It's less than what she used to invest, right? But now she has a part. I got her started with podcasts, and I said, why don't you interview dentists? She started interviewing dentists, and now she's getting clients. Does that make sense? But it's all in. So with you, right? The issue is there is no strategy. What's your strategy to gain clients from your podcast? Is the question. So my thing is, like I do a 3-step process as far as my appointment process is concerned, and it's very, very laid out. So the last piece of the puzzle you need with anything that you're doing is your own science. So yes, you did a podcast, but you gave up too early. Second, when you're talking about podcasts, I can see, like, just in your in your demeanor, yeah, come this way. Yeah. So in the podcast, like, when you said, like, so it really is something is bothering you about that,
Yeah.
right? So that needs to go away. Does that make sense? First thing is, what part of the podcast you would like? Like, do you want to go on a podcast, or do you want to actually do the interviews with other people?
I do enjoy going on other people's podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think some of it is, it takes the weight of the responsibility.
Right.
Because I have so many other things that I'm still trying to figure out everything in the pivot.
Yeah.
A little bit in my business.
Yeah.
And so I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
So it's just that thing that
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out. And ironically, I remember when I first started doing it, someone sent me a message on Instagram and said, I could see the chakras around your throat. I was like, I was like mildly creeped out, but I was like, but then I said, there's something going on. Because
Right.
they came back on and said, and then I said, well, maybe someone's just trying to sell me something.
Right.
But listening to you talk, maybe
Yeah.
there's something to that.
Yeah, exactly. And then your process of sales, right?
I'm sorry. The salad comes with it. Can I have a season? Okay. Yes.
So with you, like when you're doing the podcast, right? So one thing it cannot have is that feeling of like, I'm not so sure what to do, right? So part of the problem you're having is you don't have a strategy behind how you're going to make this profitable.
Yes.
That's part of the problem. That's why you are hesitating as far as that's concerned, right? And look, I will be happy to meet you and like help you with that process. That's what I do, right? Like I can help you, right? I'll give you my book too, by the way. Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So essentially, like, when you're looking at podcasting is a profitable platform, you just have to understand what the mechanics are behind it, and it doesn't need to be complicated. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yes.
Right? And I'm hearing is a few things that sometimes we get in our head, right? We're up here a lot. And that prevents tightness all here.
Right.
And down here.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other chakras, right? Which is one of my areas of opportunity. So, can you explain to us how you went through the process of touching that tree to figure out what your strategy was in terms of the style for your podcast? Question number one.
Mhm.
And then question number two, you talk about inviting guest speakers. How do you find guest speakers for your podcast?
That's good question, right? Dr. Imani, can you close the curtain? Thank you. So to be honest, like number one, right? For me, I always look at everything from a lens of simplicity. Right? Simple is profitable, complex is cumbersome. Okay. So literally my podcast production and as far as editing, I almost do zero editing. I literally, it is what it is. Like it's either you're gonna say something good or you're gonna say something stupid. If you're gonna say something stupid, I won't post it. Is that simple, right? Like, or if it's a bad podcast, obviously bad microphone or something like that, it's not fair to the guest or to the listener to post that. Okay. So for me, like this podcast I just did right now, like as I'm recording this particular podcast, I'm not going to edit this thing. It's gonna go on as it is. Okay. There is zero editing. So first take all that stuff out, stop being perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. It's either they're going to like it or they're not. Like so if you do a good job asking the right questions, then there won't be an issue. As far as putting it on social media, the biggest bigger things about podcasting is you can now put that on social media, right? Like you can take that and take it into reels or putting into other things, right? Like now I do have professional team. I do have a 12 employees, as far as my marketing agency. So they do go in the back end, and now we are growing our YouTube presence. So they are doing some things that are necessary, but first I didn't really need that. I just said, okay, just post. Like they said, how are we going to add it? I said, we're just going to post, right? Literally. So if you came on my podcast, is I'm posting it as it is. Because it doesn't make sense to, because then you have to pay for the editor, then you have to pay for this, then you have to pay for that, and it just creates so much more work and it makes it expensive proposition. My goal is not that. What's my goal? My goal is to meet people and see if I can either create a partnership of some sort or friendship of some sort, and or create a client out of that. My end goal is revenue. Correct. The goal of podcasting, the reason I'm spending the time is I want to gain clients. End of story.
What
So-
platform, when you're doing your podcast, do you prefer?
Right. So for me, it's very simple, right? So there are about 3 or 4 platforms you're going to need for you to make a successful podcast to start with, right? That doesn't mean you're going to get downloads. That just means that you need 3 or 4 platforms. Usually the budget should be no more than $100 to $150 a month
You know what?
to do a podcast. Like to do a successful podcast, couple $100 should take care of putting on the podcast. That doesn't mean like getting guests on the podcast and you getting on podcast, like that's a whole different, game, if you will, right? But there are platforms out there that actually provide you guests, or they guests are looking for you, if you will, right? So there are multiple different platforms like that, right? Then there is SEO for the podcast. That's a audition. So there are additional things that happen, but everything should all in should be 150 to 200 bucks at max per month, and you should be able to do a rocking podcast if you do it properly. If you do it properly, if you just do have, and it should bring you ROI. Like, I'm all about ROI. Let me be clear, right? I joined eWomen Network for one reason: get more clients, because my clients are women entrepreneurs majority of the time. Correct? I made a lot of money from eWomen Network, tons. Okay, so to me, it's a ideal for me to be here. Pinnacle Global Network. My plan is to penetrate that organization. It's very simple. Like I did a speaking engagement the other day at my group, Dr. Imani, right? They were floored. They're like, we don't have any feedback for you. Right? Like literally, my mentor called me back and said, I normally have feedback, but there is no feedback. Like, I just have clients for you. Like, can I just send some people to you? I said, sure, why not, right? But the thing is that I showed up authentically. I did not present. I didn't do PowerPoint. I didn't do any. I just showed up and do what I'm doing right now, just having conversation. So it's very simple. Like, if I can take you to a multi-million-dollar business, would you be open to that? It's a very simple conversation. It's either yes or either no. I don't know. It doesn't matter which one it is, right? But for me, the podcasting is a very simple process. It's a process in my journey, right? Like, there's a lady I talked to. She's from Alabama recently. She's a doctor, and I spoke to her, and she's starting her wellness business. She's been doing it for a year, and it's called Seven Sisters, and because there are seven sisters, and they're starting a new brand called Three Brothers. And we ended up talking, and it's my ideal client. She's going to be on my podcast, and she's like, I love what you're doing. I showed her my community, and she's like, I want to be part of your community, right? So for me, it's a simplicity of it. If you make it complicated, then it will always be complicated. And as far as your sales process, just talk to me. I'll help you out with that. I'll help you close it. Closing deals was with what you do is to be it's so easy. Like, if I was doing whatever you're doing, oh man, I would have some fun with that one. But the thing is, most people's forte is not marketing, or they don't see how to tie it all together, right? So when you don't see that benefit, the last piece, like, really creating your own science. I've created my own science. You might have your own science, like the way you do things, right? It's the way I do things, the way I do things, essentially. So either, some people like it and some people don't. And if you don't like it, it's perfectly okay with me. I'm not going to sit there and micro analyze and say, okay, is it going to work or not work? It either works for you or it doesn't.
How do you think you've gotten so many downloads from your podcast? What do you think has been your secret sauce?
That's a good question, right? So for downloads, there are a few things that I'm doing. So one, you need a good distribution platform. So distribution platforms become a key ingredient for this, right? So there are few, few of them are out there which I can help you guys make the right decision. But more importantly, after the distribution platforms, there's also podcast SEO that goes in. So this doesn't have, by the way, none of this is expensive. Okay, it doesn't have to be godly amount of money. It just needs to be set up properly. Once you set it up, you're set to go. Like, you shouldn't have to do a whole lot of this, that, and the other. And one of the biggest things I find is that the name of your podcast. My podcast name is Financial Chakras: Abundance Through Alignment. And I always stay true to my brand. I never go away from that. I know my brand by default attracts people who are, like, literally attracted to their brand. I don't do, like, if it's, some people say you should do copywriting and this and that and blah 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 blah. I don't get into any of that. I just talk to you. Either you like this or you don't. Like, it's my style is very, very simple. When I do one-on-one appointments, I'm talking to you. I'm figuring out the issues. I'm really helping you go through the process and really helping you see exactly how I can help you. Yes, I for my streaming platform, I use StreamYard. Or so there are from there's other ones out there, but like, I happen to like StreamYard because it's simple.
It is simple because you hit one button and it goes to all your platforms.
Yeah.
But Riverside does that now. Riverside
Yeah.
does that, and then
The
there's-
quality is not that great though. I've been on some Riverside platforms and they don't have a green screen. They don't have like certain features that I would look for on a podcast, because I always have my green screen. Today I don't, but usually I always have my green screen, right?
So,
To me,
so a lot of people use Zoom.
yes, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
No,
and
don't.
Zoom-
It's called Zoom casting, and it's a thing nowadays. Zoom casting is a thing, but it's for like micro podcasters who are just getting like, they're dabbling. They're not really serious, because it's like, if I'm interviewing you guys, I want 1080p recording. I'm gonna spend the time, energy, money, like everything, correct? Because I'm taking my time away from something.
Yeah.
So why would I do half job when I can do a proper production? And when it's going to cost me like $100 to $200 a month, and have one good microphone, I already have a studio at home. You don't have to have a studio. You can just do it like this, right? Like I'm. So now the crazy part about this is that I started to market this into Indian community. So I went to, because it's Financial Chakras, Abundance Through Alignment. That's the name of the podcast, right? So I said, okay, how do I show people how does abundance really come? Is the question I've been asking. So I happen to be pretty well versed with Indian community, specifically business owners. So I started to go into Indian community and say, hey, can I do an interview with you? But why am I doing that? Why am I going to take the time? Because they're not my ideal client, not for stuff that I'm doing, right? But I'm doing that because I want to get out there into the Indian community, hotel, motel owners, and all these places. I want to be like get into my circle over there, right? And name, even though they know me for years for other things, but I want them to, and everybody wants to tell their story anyways. And the best part is they will pay for my podcast. I can take my production stuff, in their location. I can market their location. I can get paid for my podcast, and I'm creating new connections. And with the way the Indian community works is, if you one liquor store owner owns one liquor store, they usually have 4 or 5 partners. So it's all about, it's an ego play in that space, is the ego play, right? So I'm playing with their ego, agreed, 100%, right? I'm playing to their what they really want. They want attention, and this thing is doing. Look, it look, it's very confetti, but does that make sense? It's an ego play on that front. Okay, it's pure ego play, because most of them, like I used to serve Indian liquor store owners, and their average net worth is about $3.5 million, right? So they have money. So it's not about the money for them. Huh? Yeah. And they are usually around 40s, my age, like, 40, 50s, right now. So, but the reason I target, like, so when you are doing these things, you really want to think about how you're going to strategically place this so that it's going to benefit you in the long run as you are moving along. And the first question you should always ask is, can you do this for a sustainable amount of time? If the answer to that is no, then don't do that thing. Is the best thing I can tell you. The number one mistake most people make is they will do it because it's a hype, or they hear it's a great thing, or it's the biggest mistake you'll make. Anything you pick up has to be deliberate. Like when you start your podcast again, I can help you set up your game plan properly. I can help you understand your sales cycle, how it should be, right? And I can show you how it would be profitable, and then you should start. Then we can say, okay, now you're ready, let's start the podcast, and you can make money from this. Make sense? So it is a marketing platform. It's hot right now. It is trendy, right? And the best part about the podcast is that YouTube videos people listen to for a few seconds, TikTok videos also for a few seconds, but podcasts most people listen to the entire time.
The audio podcast
The whole time. Like think about any podcast you picked up, you listen to the whole thing.
there is a podcast that I listened to. I even sat through a 2.5 hour podcast.
Right.
And this one gentleman I was listening to, he said, if you give good content, people will sit there.
Right.
And I have been really listening to this one particular podcast. I think I sent you
You
one.
did.
So I listened to another one for two. That was 2.5 hours.
Right.
The interviewer was great.
Right.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of addicted.
Right.
So I am sitting through, and I'm somebody who's like all over the place.
Exactly.
This, that, this,
Exactly.
that. So I was able to listen to it, and that's what I was wondering if I do podcasts that are longer,
Yeah.
or should I do like 30 minutes? To me is good.
Yeah. It's your style.
Yeah.
What suits you? For me, 1 hour is good. Does that make sense? Some people like it longer, some people like it shorter. So these opinions about, or you should only do 30 minutes because people listen to it for 30 minutes and it's garbage. I listen to podcasts all the time, especially on YouTube. If it's a good podcast, like I love holistic podcasts, especially from India or something, like when they're really talking about certain things, I really get interested. And I listen to the whole thing. Even in my bathroom, I listen to, like, I'm not letting this go. I'm gonna listen to it, right? Like,
Right.
does that make sense?
But
So,
I,
And
right?
yeah, it has to be good. It has to attract, come up in the feed. I
Yeah.
always wonder, if I have something different to offer.
Right.
That's the thing. Am I just saying the same thing, and do I have something different to offer?
Yeah.
Right now, should I go back to interviewing women about I would talk about their business, and
Yeah.
the last few minutes asking about their personal style,
Yeah.
and I wasn't selling anything. Just asking
Yeah.
people to follow, like, and subscribe to my
Right.
channels.
Right.
I give out a lot of content in social media. A
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. So the question is the content leading to a end result?
I have a lot of people who like my content.
Okay, but is that leading to the end result?
No.
Okay, so the question is, what is it that you need? So you have the magic, you like social media, you have the logic. Okay, let's go on social media and do things. But then the science piece you haven't figured out as to how does that turn into business? The last piece, right? And that's why your conviction level about social media is there. You like it, but you're not sure if it's going to work for you. So then hence your motivation goes down, and then you become inconsistent.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I will say I did take a break. This time I was doing it consistently, and I took a break this summer just because we were traveling a
Right.
lot, and I just needed some downtime.
Right.
For myself. But it's starting back up this fall. I have an interview I just did with this fantastic woman.
Right.
We had so much fun. I did love talking to women. It was a good time. But I have a lot to edit out of myself. So
Yeah.
the thing I like about Riverside is that you can go in and cut out the words.
You can. I agree with you. You can. And Riverside for that is good, right?
Yeah.
If you want to do all that, right, and that's fine. Nowadays there are podcasts are so easy to edit. There are lots of platforms out there where you can just cut out the words and it will cut out that clip, right? It becomes very easy.
Okay, because the interview I did with I thought she was great. I thought she was authentic. But I know that she would say, okay, well, it'll be on once I edit it. It's like, no, you don't need to edit. You were being authentic.
Right.
You,
Yeah.
which was wonderful.
Right.
And it was fun and it becomes perfect.
Yeah.
Too perfect when we edit stuff. And then maybe people are like, oh, they don't see your personality.
Yeah.
And I think when you don't edit, I told you this before, when you don't edit, you can see you,
Yeah.
your personality.
So does that come from someplace? Like, do you feel like maybe sometimes you feel like you're not good enough, or where does it come from? No therapy. Okay, never mind. Oh yeah. No, I'm not giving you therapy. I promise.
Well, everybody has their moments.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, for me, realistically, do I have the time?
There you go. That's the most important
Do
question.
I have the time to give to this the way I want to? And also, I do need some more equipment. Definitely, right now, my husband and I are sharing the equipment, and so I have to reinvest in some more equipment.
Right.
I told him I'm gonna need another computer. I was supposed to launch hers
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this month, but I realized I need a little bit more time. It's gonna be on the 6th,
Yeah.
and it'll be done, everything's done. I'm just gonna pay somebody to edit it. I'm tired.
Right.
But I'm gonna get that out, and I am going to not let the perfect impede the progress.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
I love that, right? Like, because that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, you figure out, and yes, if you need the equipment, you need the equipment, right?
Yeah.
Like this computer it's a new computer I bought, new laptop, right?
Yeah.
But before this, I was doing on my MacBook Air, and it didn't really have a whole lot of things. I couldn't save anything on that thing because it was totally filled up. So but I was still doing it. It's on StreamYard. It's online. It's not really taking up any space. I just had to close out all the other tabs to make it work, right? But I made it work initially. But I think that nowadays you can get a MacBook Pro for about $500. Like if you get refurbished for $500, $600, you can get a
Yeah.
really nice one.
Yeah, I need one just for the podcast.
Yeah.
Just for the podcast,
Yeah.
so you can store them, and then my I might as well call her by everything.
Yeah.
she's my right hand. Jean has been good about going back to some of my old podcasts. I think I've interviewed or talked with before the interview, or even if we didn't do the
Mhm.
interview, over 100 women.
Wow.
Because I didn't know anybody when I started the business. I said, I need to talk to these women.
This is behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was a great experience. I love talking to women. I love doing it. And I feel more comfortable and confident behind the camera and the mic, more so than on stage.
Yeah. And that's fine. So that means that you're finding your alignment. Maybe it is a thing for you, but just create a good strategy behind it that leads to money. Makes sense? Like at the end, because if you keep doing it, you'll keep dreading it again. But you put together a proper strategy, then that becomes okay. You are comfortable in front of the camera, so that one piece is done. You love talking to women, so that's two pieces of the puzzle are done. Now the question is, how do you deliver content so that your guests would benefit and the people who are listening would benefit? Right? You put that together in a good way, right? And you can ask proper questions so that it will lead to that, right? And then also the guests should be your target audience,
Yeah.
right? To some degree, not all of them are going to be that way, but to some degree.
Yeah, I will say the women were my target audience. They were all
Yeah.
business owners.
Yeah.
And I learned so much. They were awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, I really enjoyed the interaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna ask you to ask me this at all, but I was just wondering, with her starting a new part, she already has a business that she's been doing, but she's pivoting to a new business, and it's different than the business she's been doing. She's a scientist. What would you say would be a good way to kind of put her foot out there in the podcasting world? Maybe she does podcasting, or maybe she's the guest.
Yeah, so very good question, right? Very good question. So question is like, what kind of business you have right now? The new business?
A program evaluation business. So it's very quantitative data driven from programs, community-based organizations about their programs, analyze the data, write reports to help them improve their programs.
Okay.
The new business is spiritual in nature, in terms of helping people turn back to their heart and being heart-centered. Whether it be helping leaders turn to being heart-centered, being their authentic selves. I won't share more. I'm still trying to figure out how to articulate
What you do.
business, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's great.
Just what you said, I think it's very much needed, and I think
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. So the purpose is what? The question is you want to reach leaders, right? Okay. So there are podcasts out there that specifically target leadership, right? So there's podcasts for everything, right? And then there are associations for everything. So now the question is, how do you take that and position yourself in there? So one, you're thinking about, if you do go on the podcast, make sure they have that reach of the ideal leaders you're trying to reach. One, okay. Or B, when you do your podcast, right, make sure you bring on guests that would be either potential partners or potential clients, right? So it's not going to always work out that way, right? Because there's going to be requests and things that's going to come, but it's okay. The point is you started the process. So I would say, like, if you strategically place it, and if you both come to my event next week, which I would highly recommend, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week, and literally it's about building $1 million business. And so I'm actually going through a lot of the in-house strategies and like going into that. Right? It's not expensive, but the purpose of the event is to really help entrepreneurs build out their entire infrastructure. So you want to come?
But I can't. Surgery
You're having
Friday-
surgery?
on
But
Friday.
do it from the table.
Wow.
You say, hold on, doc. Put this on for me. Give me earbuds, okay? He can do the surgery.
Do I have
You
to
can
be
do
on
your
the
thing,
camera?
okay?
Do I have to be on camera? Wow. I can see why you're so successful. Wow. So when you start your podcast, what you're talking about, I have someone for you.
Yeah.
And he will
Mhm.
Yeah, he has a Heart of Giving podcast.
Yeah.
And so you should talk to him. We'll set something up. So
Yeah.
you can talk to him about
He's fun.
starting out as your first guest.
Yeah. See? Yeah. And if I can help you in any way, guys, I'll be happy to help you, okay? As far as like sales or marketing or business development, whatever you guys are struggling in, the only thing you guys are missing is a good strategy to really, like, make sure that you have the foundation. That's it. And then just go on it. I mean, literally that's simple. And I always believe in simplicity, so I'm not going to give you something crazy. It'll be very, very simple. Like, let's do this, right? And then I'll be there to support you guys in terms of like whatever you guys need.
My question is, how do you get all this downloads?
That's a great question, right? So whenever I'm doing the podcast, the very first thing I do is one is unique topic. The second big thing is what I write in there is SEO friendly. So I make sure that it's SEO friendly. So I make sure of that. Okay. The third thing that I do is make sure the distribution channels are strong, right? And of course, the fourth thing is promotions. That does play into a role, if you will. Doesn't have to be expensive promotion, but proper promotion, right? And everything has to end lead to the end result. Because my promise for financial chakras is I show them how chakras exist in financial instruments and how that's what my thing is. So if I bring on a guest that is very practical, like I brought on one guy, he's very practical. He was that guy, he is a financial advisor and he doesn't know anything about chakras or whatever. But I turned my conversation into that to help my audience understand what he's saying. Right? Because he's like, just go for it. This is his thing. And the holistic entrepreneur is like, well, I can't go for it. That's the problem. Like, how do you just go for that? So I have to drill down into that in him and pull that out of him. Does that make sense? So yeah, like you have to really understand your client and say, where is this really leading? And is my client going to really, right? Right. So it's not just, so then I asked him another question and he says, oh, that's easy, man. Like, just this is how we talk literally. Hey man, how you doing? That's easy, man. You know how it works. And I'm like, yes, I know how it works, but you have to explain it in detail. Like I said, so I'm asking him drilling down questions, right? And then there will be some people who are just there for their own promotion. And in that space, I just stop my podcast. I tell them, I pause it literally. And I said, listen, this is not a promotional platform. If that's what you are here, I can stop this. And you have to own your space. Like it's your podcast, it's their privilege to come. right? Like, sometimes I'll offer, it has happened here, right? An opportunity to come on my podcast. I'll take the time, and then they'll have the audacity to not show up. They will never be on my podcast again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They will never be on my podcast again. With me, trust and integrity is very important. If you're not going to show up, at least just let me know. Right? That is just not going to happen. You lost your opportunity to have 1,200 people listen to your podcast. Right? It's like this. Okay, think of it this way. If somebody told you that there are 1,200 people, meaning every time you produce a podcast, there will be 100 listeners minimum. So if there was a room full of people, of 100 people, would you take the speaking engagement? And how would you deliver that speech? Think about that for a second, right? So podcast, like, how hard do you work to get 100 people to get on your webinar? Think about how hard you work to get 100 people on your webinar. Very hard, right? This gives you opportunity to be on there automatically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So every time I do a podcast, I know there's going to be 100 plus people listening. So I deliver amazing value to make sure. And I always think there are 100 people listening.
Now, do you, I would always ask people to tell people how to get in contact with them if they want to learn more.
Yeah, at the end. That's always at the end,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
very end, like
Yeah.
all the way at the end.
Okay. I
Nothing in the middle.
was saying.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
think about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Good.
Well, thank you so
yeah.
much, Ash. This
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Wonderful time, and so happy that you were here, and we learned a lot.
Thank you.
I learned a
Yeah,
tremendous amount.
I've got quite a few.
I appreciate you guys very much. Okay. Thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you guys. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm inspired to do it.
you. Thank you guys.